He said our entire one-year relationship was a bet with his friends. "You were never really my boyfriend," Ryan said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "You were just something I did for a year. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't reach for my drink." "I know," I said. I had known for 11 days. "My name is Caleb. I'm 26. Ryan and I had been together for exactly 1 year, 2 weeks and 4 days, which is a strange thing to count, until you realize you started counting. The moment you found the screenshot. It was a Tuesday night when I found it. I wasn't looking for anything. Ryan had asked me to grab a restaurant confirmation from his laptop, and when I opened the browser, the tab wasn't a restaurant. It was a group chat, the kind with a name that's supposed to be funny. The name of the chat was Operation Keep Him. There were 47 messages. I read all 47 in the time it takes to breathe slowly and not make a sound. The first message was from 11 months ago. Ryan had made a bet with his friends, Marcus, Dev, and someone named Priya, I'd never met, that he could keep a guy emotionally invested for a full year without ever actually caring about him. The prize was $200 and bragging rights at someone's birthday party. That was apparently coming up in 3 weeks. I closed the laptop. I went back to the couch. I handed Ryan the confirmation I'd been sent to find, which I had memorized because I couldn't stop my mind from working. And I sat down and watched the rest of the movie like the floor hadn't just disappeared beneath me. That was 11 days before the dinner. Here's what you need to understand about those 11 days. I didn't cry. I didn't confront him. I went to work, came home, made coffee, responded to texts, smiled at the right moments, and said, "I love you," exactly as many times as I always had, in exactly the same tone. I needed 11 days because I had things to untangle. A joint streaming account, a shared car insurance policy I had been paying 60% of, a credit card on which I was listed as an authorized user, his card, not mine, but one I'd been encouraged to use, for our groceries and our expenses, for the better part of 8 months. I also needed 11 days to be completely, surgically sure. The dinner was at a restaurant called Oleander, the kind of place where the chairs are uncomfortable by design and the portions are small by philosophy. Ryan had organized it for his birthday, which was still 2 weeks away because he wanted, as he put it, the right energy. 8 of his friends. Me, at the end of the table, in the seat farthest from the door. I had been to enough of these dinners to know my place at them. The first time I understood my place, we had been together for about 3 months. We were at a house party, and someone asked Ryan how we met. He laughed and said, he kind of just appeared in my life. Not a lie, technically. Not the truth of it either. We had met at a bookstore. He had asked me about a novel I was holding. We had talked for 40 minutes. He had asked for my number. When I reminded him of this later, at home, he waved his hand and said, "You always take things so literally." Everyone thought it was charming the way I said it. Everyone thinks. You always. I would hear those 2 phrases so many times. That year they stopped sounding like language and started sounding like weather. The second time I understood my place, we were 4 months in. Ryan had introduced me to his colleagues at a work event as a friend who came along. I was standing next to him when he said it. I was wearing the shirt he had specifically told me to wear because it looked good. His hand was not on my back. His eyes were not on me. He was looking at his manager. When he said a friend, and he kept looking at his manager while I processed the sentence. Later he said I was being embarrassing by bringing it up. "Everyone thinks you're oversensitive," he told me. "I've heard it from multiple people." I asked him which people. He said I was missing the point. The third time, we were 8 months in, at his cousin's engagement party. His cousin asked if we were serious. Ryan said, "We're having fun." Then he looked at me with a smile that asked me to agree. And something in my chest went very still. And I agreed, and the cousin moved on. And Ryan squeezed my hand once. And that squeeze was the most terrifying thing I felt all evening because it felt like a reward. You always make things heavier than they need to be. That was his other phrase. Not 2 phrases. 3. Everyone thinks. You always make things heavier than they need to be. At the Oleander dinner, everything was normal for the first hour. Wine was ordered. Someone told a story about a bad date. Marcus, one of the chat participants, whose name I now associated with the words, "He's definitely still clueless LOL," made a toast to Ryan's upcoming birthday. I raised my glass. I smiled. My hands were completely steady. Then Ryan started telling a story about a camping trip we'd taken in March. It was a good trip. I had planned most of it, researched the site, booked the permit, packed the food. Ryan was describing it to the table, and the story he told had me in it, but not really. In his version, he had organized everything. In his version, I had tagged along. In his version, there was a funny moment where I got lost on a trail for 20 minutes, and he had to come find me like I was a dog that had wandered off. I hadn't gotten lost. I had stopped to take photographs. He had known exactly where I was. I had texted him, but he was telling the story and the table was laughing, and Dev, another name from the chat, message count, 11, was saying, "Classic, man, classic." And Ryan was glowing the way he always glowed when a room was watching him, and I put down my fork. "That's not what happened," I said. Not loud, not sharp, just accurate. Ryan looked at me. His expression did something complicated. Then he smiled, the kind of smile that performs patience, and he said, "You always make things heavier than they need to be, babe." The table moved on. I picked up my fork. I finished my meal. I ordered dessert. When the bill came, I did not offer to split it, which was unusual, and Ryan noticed, and I met his eyes and said I'd forgotten my card. He paid. I said thank you in the same tone I would use to thank a waiter. We took a cab home. He talked the whole way. I made sounds of agreement. When we got inside, he went to the bathroom, and I sat on the edge of the bed, and my breathing was very slow, and I thought, 11 days was enough time. Tonight is the night. I waited until he was asleep. 2:07 a.m. His breathing was even and untroubled, the breathing of someone who had had a good night. And I sat at the kitchen table with my phone, and I did 4 things in order. First, I called my bank and removed Ryan as an authorized recipient on the emergency contact I'd listed, a formality I'd set up at his request 6 months ago, one of those small intimacies that look like love and function like access. Second, I called his bank's automated service and reported the authorized user card, my card, lost. It would be deactivated within 24 hours. There was $43 on it from a coffee run I'd done 2 days prior. I would not be replacing those $43. Third, I texted my friend Jordan and said, "Can I stay with you starting Thursday? Just a few days. I'll explain later." Jordan replied at 2:19 a.m. because Jordan keeps strange hours, with a single word, "obviously." Fourth, I opened a notes app and wrote down every shared account, every shared expense, everything in the apartment that was mine and not ours. The list took 9 minutes. It was thorough. I went to sleep at 3 a.m. I slept well. Thursday morning I left for work as usual. I kissed Ryan on the cheek. He smiled with his eyes still closed. I had a duffel bag in my office already. I had brought it there on Wednesday, piece by piece, in my regular work bag over 2 days. Nothing dramatic. Just clothes, documents, the small things. At 4:15 p.m. on Thursday, I texted Ryan, "Staying at Jordan's tonight. Talk soon." I turned my read receipts off before I sent it. The first text came at 4:22 p.m. What does that mean? No question mark. Ryan never used question marks when he was angry. They implied he was asking, and when Ryan was angry, he was never asking. Then, Caleb. Then, hello. Then a string of messages that I read once, registered, and did not respond to. The way you register weather from inside a building. You're being embarrassing, you know that? Everyone is going to think you've lost it. There it was. Everyone thinks. Even now. At 6:48 p.m., my card isn't working. The one you had. What did you do? There was a pause of about 40 minutes. At 7:31 p.m., I needed that for groceries. This is so childish I can't even. Another pause. I was eating dinner with Jordan by then. Jordan had not asked questions. We talked about other things. It was one of the better meals I'd had in months. At 9:14 p.m., the tone changed. "Caleb, I'm sorry if I embarrassed you at dinner. You know I didn't mean it that way." I noticed he said if, not, "I'm sorry I embarrassed you." If, a small word doing enormous work. I just need you to talk to me. This isn't like you. Then, please. Then, at 10:02 p.m., I miss you. 3 phases. Anger. Logistics. Manipulation. Right on schedule. I put my phone face down and finished the tea Jordan had made. Ryan called at 11:30 p.m. I let it ring. He called again at 11:31. I answered on the third call of that second attempt, which came in at 11:33. "Where are you?" he said. Not a question. Jordan's. Why? You know why. Caleb, I swear to God, you are being so. Ryan. My voice was quiet. I read the chat. Silence. A specific kind of silence. The kind that isn't empty. What chat? Operation Keep Him. The silence changed shape. He stopped. Started again. That was a joke. That was months ago. You don't understand the context. You always. I understand the context. It wasn't real. It was just something stupid we said. 11 months ago. 47 messages. $200. He was quiet. Caleb, listen to me. What we have is real. You know it's real. You're making this into something it isn't. Good night, Ryan. Don't you dare hang up on me. That's so? I hung up. My hands were still. The room was quiet. Jordan was in the other room watching something with headphones on, giving me space without being asked. I sat with the silence for a while. It was not uncomfortable. It was 11:41 p.m. The next call came from Marcus at 9:17 the following morning. I almost didn't answer. I answered because I was curious. Hey man, Marcus said. He had the voice of someone who had been coached. I just wanted to reach out because Ryan is really going through it right now, and I think there might be some miscommunication. Marcus, I said. Were you in the chat? A pause. It was a joke, he said. We were drunk. It wasn't. That's all I needed to know. Caleb, come on. You're going to throw away a whole year over. Take care of yourself, I said. I hung up. Some people will defend anything if the alternative is admitting they participated in it. On Saturday morning, Ryan called again. I answered. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hear what someone sounds like when they're finally out of tactics. His voice was different. Smaller. The performance was mostly gone. I did care about you, he said. I want you to know that. Whatever you think, it became real. Something in me registered that sentence. I turned it over. I believe you, I said. Because I did. I believed that somewhere in that year, something had shifted for him. I believed that the bet had become complicated. I believed he had felt something real. I also believed that he had never once stopped to tell me the truth. Not when it shifted. Not when it became real. Not ever. Then why are you doing this? He asked. Because caring about someone isn't the same as respecting them, I said. And you never did the second thing. He didn't have an answer for that. I had gone over to the apartment on Friday while he was at work. I had taken what was mine, which was everything on the list and nothing else. I had made it clean. I left the key on the kitchen counter. I left one thing behind on purpose. A photograph from the camping trip in March. The real one, where I had stopped to take pictures of the morning light coming through the trees. In the photo, you can see how calm everything was. You can see the trees and the light and the edge of the trail and not much else. I left it because it was the truest thing from that year. Not the dinner. Not the parties. Not the performances. Just a morning in March when I was alone on a trail I knew exactly. Taking a photo of something beautiful, while Ryan waited somewhere I could find any time I wanted. I wasn't lost. I never was. I've thought about what that year was, and I keep coming back to the same place. It wasn't wasted. That's too easy, and it's not accurate. I learned things about myself in that year, about the specific ways. I make myself smaller when I think someone needs space. About the gap between what I accept and what I deserve. About how long I can hold very still when the ground disappears. A year is a long time. It doesn't disappear, just because the other person was lying about their reasons for being there. But here's the thing I keep sitting with. The question I can't fully answer. Ryan said it became real. I believe him. And if it became real somewhere in the middle, if somewhere around month 4 or 5 or 6, the performance stopped being performance, then what was he protecting by not telling me? His pride? His friend's impression of him? The version of himself that doesn't lose bets? And if he was protecting all of those things at the cost of my truth, then what does it mean that he called it love? I don't think love and respect are the same thing. I used to think they were. I thought if someone loved you, respect was inside that, folded in. But I've learned they're different muscles. You can exercise one your whole life and never develop the other. Ryan loved me the way some people love a view, standing at the window, pleased by it, but never once thinking about what it's like to be the thing being looked at. What I know now is this. The moment someone makes you the subject of a bet, the bet doesn't end when they start caring. It ends when they tell you. And if they never tell you, the caring was for them, not for you. I stayed at Jordan's for a week. Then I got my own place, a small one, quieter than I expected. Some mornings I make coffee and stand by the window, and the light comes in at an angle that reminds me of that photograph. I don't feel angry when it does. I feel the particular peace of someone who walked out of a room before they were thrown out of it. The question I leave with you is not whether Ryan was a good person or a bad one. That's not the interesting question. The interesting question is this. If someone loves you, actually genuinely starts to love you, but they built that love on a lie they never confessed, does the love count? Does the year count? And if you had been Ryan, at the moment it stopped being a bet and started being real, what would you have done? Because that moment is the whole story. Not the bet, not the year. That single moment when you realize the person in front of you is real, and you have to decide whether your pride is worth more than their right to know. Most people never answer that question honestly. I hope you do.